Hello, welcome. We're getting started a little later today than we normally do, but uh, tis what happens when you forget to charge your camera. Anyways, uh, I want to start today by talking about the elections coming up in the United States, because this midterm election cycle that we're going through right now is shaping up to be a bit more exciting than any of us, well, anybody who was paying attention, thought that it was actually going to be. I certainly didn't think that this election was going to be at all interesting outside of potentially deciding quite a few future events that happen in the United States. But the actual logistics of the election, I didn't think were going to be that exciting. I thought we would see right about normal turnout. It would be a matter of like which party could get their constituents jazzed up enough to get out and vote, which is how it normally goes on midterm elections. And instead, we have been absolutely smashing voter turnout records like everywhere. Like in every state, early voter turnout has been breaking all kinds of records. Um, Georgia has released some stunning numbers from their first couple of days of early voting, in-person voting, and they are They are breaking even the presidential election of 2020, which is ridiculous because the 2020 presidential election broke records for turnout for the presidential election, and usually the presidential election absolutely smashes the midterm election, but this midterm it's breaking even that record. So it says here that Saturday's total marks an astounding 159% increase from day 6 of the 28 midterm early voting and shattered the turnout record of day 6 of early voting in the 2020 presidential election by 20%. So, good lord, like it still doesn't like put us in the highest number of voter participation in the world, but 20% more than a presidential election in a midterm. Yeah, the 20% more than the record breaking presidential election for a midterm is ridiculous. And I do not know what that is going to mean. I don't have any good predictions for it because I've heard what I've heard about the early voter turnout is that it's the split is still heavily tilted in Democrats' favor, but it's not as heavily tilted in the Democrats' favor as it was in the 2020 presidential election. It was like it was like there was like 10 points. The ratio of Democrats showing up for early in-person voting in 2020 versus Republicans was like the spread was 10% more. So even though we're breaking records, it appears to be that the Republicans are coming out in as equally high or higher numbers than the Democrats are. But just given the makeup of the voting constituencies in the United States, higher turnout favors the Democrats because the Democrats have a more what's the word I'm looking for? They have a more apathetic voter base. The voters in the Democratic Party are less likely to come out and vote, even though they support the Democrats, because they're convinced that the voting system in the United States has rigged their vote into meaninglessness. And so why would they take the time out of their day to go out and vote? It doesn't fucking matter anyway. Which, to be fair, is kind of true, but it's also self-defeating because the if you don't want Republicans to win, which the Republican Party still has not kicked the "we wish that Trump was in office even though he lost the election" bandwagon. They still have not kicked that train. So if you don't want Republicans to win, then you have to beat them because of the rigged system by, I think it's like 5 percentage points. Like, in order for Democrats to hold a majority, they have to, instead of being able to get 51% and get a 51% majority in the legislature, they have to get like damn near 60% of the popular vote to get 50% of the seats at the federal level, which is ridiculous. And the voter base is split so evenly in the United States that's essentially guaranteed not to happen, no matter how much support there is for Democrats. So the system is highly favorable to Republicans. Republicans can win a majority with significantly less than an actual majority of votes. So, but the actual population of the United States it's like, last time I saw it, it was like almost 60% Democrat leaning, potentially more, and then like 30% Republican, and then another what is it, 20 what is that, I'm blanking on the math here, 60-30, and then like 10% is like independent. So it's like, if you can get the independents and the Democrats all to come out, then that's 70% of the vote right there. And yeah, it's hard, and yeah, it sucks that Democrats have to get more than a majority to win a majority, but that just means that coming out to vote, especially in an election where literally the peaceful transition of power, which is the hallmark that made America in the eyes of the world, literally is on the line. Like, this is not a joke. And it's frustrating to see people just completely apathetic to that fact. And like, I don't like the system. I don't like that I have to keep making these like calculated moral considerations about who I'm going to vote for, instead of just having a candidate that matches my beliefs and then just being able to vote for them. I constantly have to be like, all right, Joe Biden sucks a little less than Donald Trump. And I don't like that, but at the same time, this new breed of Republican Party that we're currently dealing with right now are fucking shameless. And it's just so it's so legitimately scary that enough people in the United States would wish that the peaceful transition of power would go away so they can keep their particular guy in power, even though their particular guy is not actually doing much for them at the, even when they're in office. Like, Donald Trump didn't do much. He did very little, actually, just a lot of talk and not very much doing anything at all. Like, he got some tax cuts. He built a little bit of the border wall, and like, he cut some people checks when COVID hit, but you know damn well that wasn't going to happen if COVID didn't hit. And all along the way, he was doing like shitty things that were mostly irrelevant to day-to-day American lives, like, completely deregulating the ability of the EPA to curb like carbon emissions, not withholding aid for hurricane reconstruction in Puerto Rico. It's like, getting rid of the Dreamers program, so the Dreamers don't have a path to citizenship anymore, even though they've been here their entire lives and are functioning members of society. Like, none of those things are particularly important to the average American's lives, but they are shitty things that he was doing. So if the president is doing shitty things and also not doing anything for you, then why are you so interested in installing this guy instead of doing the standard peaceful transition of power that happens all the time? It's not like the Republicans can't win. It's not like Joe Biden is a particularly like transformative president. He's done more good things and he's done more actions during his presidency than I thought he would, than I think anybody thought he would. He surprised all of us with the tenacity with which he chases some of the things that he said he was going to do. Now, all of his solutions, don't get me wrong, they're all milquetoast, but we all expected him to roll over and lay down, and he like started to do that, and then like had an epiphany and was like, "Yeah, no, actually, I'm going to fight back now." Now he doesn't have any like things to really run on because his presidency has been, it's been better in my opinion than every other president that I've had, but that's not a particularly high bar. He's still not a particularly impressive historical figure. He's not going to be remembered as some transformative president like FDR or Reagan, even though I think Reagan was an idiot. He was transformative, and that's not going to be Joe Biden. It's also not going to be Donald Trump. Maybe Donald Trump will be remembered as the guy that like accidentally kicked off the transition into whatever America becomes after Donald Trump. But his actual legislative accomplishments are pretty limited. So I don't understand this infatuation with installing him as president and throwing the peaceful transition of power out the window. But there's a huge portion of the country that is just totally on board with this. Politicians too, and they're all in the Republican Party. And so this election is like, it's not a joke. Like, we have actual stakes on the line this time, and seeing record-breaking turnout is usually an encouraging sign for Democrats, because the population, the breakdown of the population leans heavily in Democratic favor. But there's also a lot of Republicans that don't vote usually. Like, it's not as many as Democrats that don't vote, but there are a lot of Republicans that don't. So if this surge of people coming in is just Republicans pissed off, then Lord help us. Who knows what's going to happen? Because if they're probably going to lose, the Democrats are probably going to lose the House. So that means that the second half of Biden's first term is going to be useless. It's going to be nothing. And the only way that the Republicans don't retake the Senate and the Senate and the presidency after this is if Donald Trump runs, because even though he is the most popular figure in the Republican Party, he would probably lose to just about anybody on the Democratic field, because that's how much the independents and the Democrats of the country dislike Donald Trump. So, but if he doesn't run, probably any of the Republican candidates outside of maybe Ted Cruz, if Ted Cruz decides to run, could probably beat Joe Biden, especially if which will probably happen if the Democrats lose at least one of the houses. So if they lose, if that happens, Biden's done. He's not getting shit done for the rest of his presidency, and he's out of office, like, realistically. So if you don't want the party that has a definite leaning towards overthrowing the peaceful transition of power, and a large portion of their voting base, not the whole voting base, but a large portion of it, that leans definitely in the fascist direction, at least the Putin style of, I'm not saying that they like Putin, I'm just saying his version of democracy that he exists in, where he's essentially king and just has to, play backroom politics with the people that run the actual show. He gets to make the decisions, but he still has to play backroom politics with the people who actually implement the things that he wants to do. Same problem Xi Jinping has in China. If that's not the kind of democracy that you want, the democracy that is essentially where the power is completely in the hands of the people only in name, and all of the actual power is consolidated into the people at the top, and those people are just going to be there for life, then you have to go out and vote against the Republican Party this time, because they will do this unless something comes along to stop them. And given the makeup of the judicial branch, and given the ineffectualness of the states at fighting back against this kind of thing, um, there's probably nothing to stop them from gerrymandering the absolute shit out of states to the point where it's basically impossible for the Democratic Party, despite the fact that they are, I think, 60% of the population, the Democratic Party from ever winning a majority. Like, they will just gerrymander it to the point where all of the Democrats are sequestered into like 44% of the districts. And it doesn't matter what the population split is, or it doesn't matter what the political party split is in the United States. If all of the Democrats are in 44% of the districts, then if all of the Democrats vote, they still only get 44%. And the Republicans get the rest of it. So, yeah, go out and vote. This is important. Early voter turnout being high is good news, but who knows? I mean, well, it's potentially good news, but you know, at this day and age, it could be a sign of bad things to come. Hopefully, it isn't, but we'll see. Regardless, go out and vote. The more people that vote, the better the Democrats do. So, if you can vote, go vote. If you're not registered, I think the registration date's actually passed. I'm not entirely up to date on how all of that works in every state, but I do believe that if you're not registered, you're boned for this election cycle. So, congratulations. If you are registered to vote, actually vote. Actually go out and vote.